Welcome back to the Herbie Movie Derby. Well, of the original 4 films, I think we might have saved the worst for last. Because, oh boy, is this one a doozy. First of all, we have a couple new producers to go with Ron Miller. Kevin Corcoran, who started out as a child star for various Disney movies like Old Yeller and the 1959 film The Shaggy Dog, and Don Tite, who is also the writer for this movie. Released in 1980, only 3 years after Monte Carlo, this film would have the lowest grossing of any of the movies yet, with a whopping $18 million before inflation. And it's currently sitting at a 40% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, with only 5 critic reviews. Why bring this up now instead of later? Well, if this truly is the worst of the original films, and maybe all of Herbie, I want to go in ready to see if any of it is well-deserved or exaggerated. After all, Herbie has at least succeeded in comedy while still putting out decent stories to boot. So maybe this one will surprise me? Well, I'm already surprised by who they got to star in this. Cloris Leachman and Harvey Korman, who were former Mel Brooks collaborators? Will I be clever enough to reference a few of their movies in this? No, I'm not that clever. Anyway, here we have Pete Stanchek, played by Stephen Burns, who is apparently Jim Douglas's nephew, and he came down to Mexico, along with his friend Davey, played by Charles Smith, to pick up Herbie. So wait a minute. You spent the entirety of the previous movie getting Herbie out of retirement, and now you have Jim giving him up again? Hell, Jim isn't even in this movie, as mentioned before, which kinda takes away any meaning they have in passing on a famous racing car from one racer to another if the previous owner isn't going to show up.
Look, all we gotta lay out is the storage fee, and you got the money.
I got the money.
All finished. Sean?
No, thanks.
You want personally conducted to a Puerto Vallarta?
Oh boy, Paco. This little kid, played by Joaquin Garay III, is the reason so much goes wrong in this movie. I mean, right now, he clearly pickpocketed these 2 knuckleheads while acting all innocent and the like. And that's not the last time he does this either. But for now, we get our more serious villains of the movie. John Vernon plays Prindle, and along with Shepard and Quinn, played by Richard Jekyll and Alex Rocco respectively, are looking to obtain some ancient treasure in a lost city, which would most likely be an illegal thing to do.
And gold, Mr. Prindle.
And what do you want?
Cash. And plenty of it. Because they're gonna throw the key away if they find us stealing that stuff.
Yeah, it's national treasure or something.
As interested as I am in wanting to know how this will tie into Herbie, I want to know one thing. Why is Herbie not with Jim anymore? Well, we're about to get an answer.
He say he would have won the Baja race too, but his girlfriend did not make the curve. Herbie, he see it, he stopped. He no finish the race. Senor Douglas say, it's here.
So what you're saying is Jim retired from racing and possibly split with Diane? Well, I guess Herbie's feelings aren't important either after he fell in love. Naturally, they find out that they got pickpocketed and pretty much have to leave without paying. If that isn't enough, Paco does his dirty little trick on the 3 baddies of the movie and ends up stealing not just their wallet, but also a piece of film that they needed to find the lost city they were looking for. Our heroes find him and have to chase him. Can you guess which of them is the most comic relief?
Oh!
I'm sorry, lady. Excuse me. We're looking for a little kid. Did you see a little kid? I'm sorry. Me too, lady.
I guess everyone knows how much of a little scamp he is if even the local cops stare at him with suspicion. And here's what he was saying to our heroes earlier.
I like Americans. Americans very smart people. Someday I go to America.
Not with this record, you are! The bad guys realize that their film was stolen and start looking for the little brat. Luckily, Pete and Davy retrieve their wallet before he could deposit it into the mailbox. Which means what happens next is no longer their business.
Hold it, kid! Hold it! Wait a minute! Hold it, kid!
Chipper! Wait,
Why? Well, we want to that mailbox.
let's get the kid first, just in case. Come on.
Good idea. After all, he did try to stow away $1 just now. He might have done the same to the film. So now everyone is after Paco. Good. Just because you might be orphaned or whatever doesn't justify... Oh wait, he found Herbie. Well, it's not like Herbie has any reason to get involved. Herbie, what are you looking at? Herbie, what are you doing?
Entrégamelo, chamaca tonta.
Herbie! You don't know this kid! Why are you helping him? Unless you were hungry for children, you literally have no reason to be doing anything for strangers. Especially when you saw your new owners chasing after him for theft. Well, now thanks to you, you now have led the bad guys to Paco's whereabouts and will now pursue you and your new owners. And what do you know? He did take the film from the wallet after all, so they have no choice but to pursue them. Otherwise, while Pete and Davy don't believe Herbie is alive yet, they at least know the car is fast, so they can use him in an upcoming race in Rio. Will this lead to any racing in this movie? No.
We blew it. The car's on the ship, the boy's on the ship.
We just know this. Somehow. They could have driven past the border or out of town, but no. They are most definitely on that boat. Well, here's our Mel Brooks stars. Harvey Korman plays Captain Blith of the Sun Princess, while Cloris Leachman plays Aunt Louise Trenz. Blith is rather full of it given the stories he tells.
No time at all, they were bloated carrion for the birds of prey.
Yeah. Do have some of the green turtle soup, Mrs. Perkins. It's the chef's specialty.
Resistance as they clambered aboard. It was parry and thrust, thrust and parry.
And Louise is trying to get her niece Melissa, played by Elisa Davolos, who is an anthropology student, a husband of her own. Though Louise seems interested in the crazy captain. I'm guessing table arrangements are predetermined since Pete and Davy have to sit with the two. Which means they're gonna try and get Pete and Melissa together, despite her disinterest in anything but studying. Pete seems only interested in racing, and while he doesn't seem too bad, he comes off as a little plain. Though it doesn't help that this movie is giving more attention to Paco than anyone else. Speaking of, when this crew member leaves his dinner in front of Herbie and gets pulled away...
But I tell you, the dial is right on the nose. I see it for myself. Take my chicken.
Well, that's what you get for eating in the cargo bay. Next time, don't eat in front of a car that might come to life and possibly eat your face. Herbie ends up taking off because he doesn't want to reveal Paco inside him. Unfortunately, this gets most of the crew after him, and like you'd expect, things get broken in the process. He's just asking for trouble, and all just for a kid who is nothing but trouble. Captain Blith gets informed, and naturally, he doesn't believe the car is alive. But once he goes downstairs and sees no driver, he suddenly believes. Okay, that's funny. Well, they find Paco inside Herbie and would later hold him in a cage. After that, they call in Pete and Davy to question them about the car.
What do you mean, pay for it?
Or did you plan to, reassemble the stemware yourselves?
It's not our responsibility.
I'm your captain, judge, and jury. I'll decide what's your responsibility.
You're kinda overdoing it. His performance is not quite as natural as with Thorndike or Alonzo Hawk. And it's kind of annoying me. Well, at least the worst Herbie gets is being impounded. But how will they be able to pay for him?
Wait a minute. She says she likes cars, and she's trying to get her niece hooked up.
Yeah? No.
Oh, wait a minute. All you gotta do is just to keep the doc enthralled with your tales of daring do while I initiate Aunt Louise into the delights of Formula One racing.
Of course! Let's force a relationship just to get money. So Davy tries convincing Louise to be a sponsor to Herbie, or whatever, while Pete tries getting it on with Melissa.
Usually when we race, it means towing the route across Texas in the middle of August, looking for a Denny's, then bedding down in some flea bag motel.
Mr. Stancher, you don't really have to say those things.
Oh, I know that. It's just that you're different than other girls I've known.
Our fingers touch.
You are pretty, Melissa.
Well, good night.
Melissa?
Okay, I did cut a bit, but I suppose this isn't as instantaneous as I thought it was. But really, they've only known each other for a few hours. That's still pretty quick. At least he doesn't like the fact that he's using her like this, so he has some morals. Meanwhile, Herbie sneaks off his locks to interact with Paco.
Hi. The captain sure was mad, wasn't he? What are they gonna do with you? They will send me back where I live, with the orphans. But it's okay. They put me back, I run away again.
Then you find an old wizard who grants you superpowers just by saying his name. Oh, and learn the meaning of family, I guess. It's somewhat amusing that Herbie is actually attempting to talk using light beeps from the horn. Yeah, he's done this before, but they were usually brief and for comedic effect. Here, he's engaging in a full-on conversation, and Paco isn't even fazed by it. Herbie then attempts to free Paco by... No, I could believe anything else, but the antenna should be broken at this point. So naturally, Herbie frees Paco, and while he at least tells Herbie to stay out of trouble, he has no choice but to flee with Herbie. Since they take an elevator ride up, what do you think will happen? Is it more shenanigans?
Sorry.
Well, I guess it can't get any worse. Better lock up that kid better and make sure the car doesn't move again. Or he'll freaking send the thing off into the ocean.
By the powers vested in me as the captain of this ship, I hereby deem this vehicle a menace to life and limb and the very safety of the vessel itself. I herewith commit it to the sea, and a fate well deserved. Seamen, do your duty.
That was unnecessarily dark. I'd say it's Herbie's fault for even bothering with the kid, but damn it, it's Paco's fault for getting him into this mess. By the way, this movie had about 26 VWs to use for various Herbie acts, and this one in particular was never recovered. So in a way, Disney killed a Herbie. Well, they made it to land and now everyone's disappointed about what happened. Pete confesses about why they did it, and Louise isn't too bothered since she's filthy rich. And she just wanted Pete to get with Melissa.
You meet such interesting types on ships.
Melissa!
Come back! No, he loves you! Go! What are you doing? Go! Act like you love her!
Naturally, Prindle shows up to take custody over Paco, and he ends up escaping. Elsewhere, we see that Herbie managed to survive being thrown overboard and has made it to land. Well, not quite. He's got to find his friend first.
Joe?
Oh yeah, he calls him Ocho because it means 8, due to combining 5 and 3 together. I'm amazed he's convinced these guys to help pull him out. But poor Paco. All that work only for Herbie to die. I mean, he doesn't look that bad. That rust looks painted on. Oh, but Herbie's not dead. He just needs to reboot and get the lead out. Just in time too, because these guys were gonna chop Herbie up for parts.
You feeling better, Ocho?
Our friend. It takes one to be one.
You know, maybe Herbie's acting out like this because he feels lonely after Jim dumped him off for this plain but friendly nephew and separating him from his lover. Because he'll take anyone for a friend, even if they're a troublemaker who gets him into danger. At least the kids really love the sentient car with no driver. All this does is make me want to visit the Panama. It looks rather nice with these shots. So now Paco's next big scheme is to turn Herbie into a taxi. Might want to wash him first. But then, the bad guys find them! Somehow. Maybe they have automatic kid-finding senses?
There was some film in a wallet you took from us in Puerto Vallarta. When we got it back, it was missing. Now, where is it?
I don't know. Maybe it got mixed up.
What do you mean, mixed up?
With the other man's wallet.
Oh, for goodness sake, just give him the film. You don't know what's on it. For all you know, it's worth nothing more than the $1 you took last time. But they threaten him to get the film back, or else.
Because if you don't... he's gonna cut this car of yours up into tiny little pieces.
This movie wants to be funny, but also be serious like the first movie was. Only here, the dramatic stuff is not only forced, it's uncannily dark! At least the dark stuff in the first movie was tied to the development of Jim's character, and that he should consider the feelings of others and how his actions affect them. Hence the suicide attempt and Thorndike wanting to chop Herbie up. Here, a little kid steals from really bad people, which nets him into trouble, but also nets Herbie in trouble because he just has to protect him for some reason. And they're trying to be funny about nearly everything else, but it leads to stuff like this. It's just not as enjoyable. Like they don't have a full grasp of the sort of tone they want. But whatever it is, it's not working. Anyway, Paco goes to Pete and Davy to apologize. He could just tell them about the film so they could check their wallets so the bad man won't kill him. But no, he steals the wallet. Again! At least they know Herbie is back. But now, because I guess they don't want to be caught, they have to go past Prindle instead of just giving him the damn film, and we get more chasing scenes. Also, we hilariously need to bring Captain Bliff and Louise into the car because it's a taxi.
same kid.
And here's the biggie. I think it's the same car.
It's a ghost. Let me out of here. Let me out of here. It's the yard arm for you. I'm being shanghaied. Help me.
That crazy Paco has taken people hostage. Isn't this hilarious? Pete, Davy, and Melissa catch a ride on a crappy bus, while Paco and the others ride into a bullfight. Unless the Red Knight is here, I don't think this will be nearly as exciting as chicken jousting. But it will be more funny, because animal abuse. So yeah, that clip I used for the opening really does happen. Herbie really does go bullfighting. Admittingly, this is probably the best thing Herbie has done ever. With everything we've seen him do, this is not only practical as hell, but entertaining. Now, if only we could do something about Paco.
Look, son, and I want you to know that I think of you as my son. If you get us out of here, I'll make you first mate of the Sun Princess, and you and your little car can stay in the lanai suite and eat at my table every night. The big boat will take you anywhere you want to go.
Don't reward him with that! Send him to the orphanage! Well, despite the captain's arrogance, he does eventually warm up to that one bit of glory he did get to experience for once in his sad, pathetic life. Paco and Herbie flee again when the bad guys show up, and the two adults rejoin Pete and the others, who are only now catching up. The bad guys take to the sky to look for the two, while the others are stuck repairing the bus. Pete also talks with Melissa again.
I'm sure you'd find a cold six-pack much more exciting. Oh, now have I hit on something that you hold dear?
Yeah, don't care. Next scene.
Such expressive faces.
Look alive with that change, woman!
Okay, not funny. Next scene.
Why would those men want a picture like this, Ocho?
I don't know. Maybe you should have returned the damn thing so they wouldn't chase you anymore. Oh gee, the bad guys who were looking for you from the sky managed to trick you into coming into this bar. Now again, what is wrong with you returning the film? That's all they want from you. You can literally get off the hook if you do this one thing. But I guess kidnapping him works. Herbie gives chase but loses them, so he goes to pick up the others.
It's the same car, but where's the boy? I think he wants to tell us something.
It's a car, woman, not Lassie.
Okay, that's a good line. The bad guys find where the ruins might be, not sure why they needed the film when they aren't looking at it now, and find a gold disc that was in the wall. Poor Paco is left alone. Please eat him, please eat him, please eat him! Damn it, they found him. Now they know the bad guys want the gold from this ruin, and Paco wants to stop them before it's too late. So what do?
Oh no, it's a car!
Of course. And there we go. Now Herbie has truly gone bananas. So there's about 12 minutes of film left, and as Luis goes to call the police, and the captain hitches a ride back to his ship, the others go to turn the gold over to an Incan ruin expert. But the bad guys beat them to it. I guess they did something because they get the gold back again. Paco and Herbie confront them and face them through the power of shenanigans.
Ocho, what are you gonna do? They're taking the gold! Attaboy, Ocho!
The is bananas. B-A-N-A-N-A-S. Now for the other memorable part of this movie. Herbie versus a freaking plane. Also ghosting.
Catch it when I raise the tail! Gotcha!
We're gonna hit him! Pull up! Pull up!
She's stalling!
Now how the hell did that happen? Well, the climax happens as Paco and Herbie chase after the criminals, the cops show up to help, Pete and gang untie themselves and do nothing, and eventually the bad guys get caught. Guess that wraps that up. Luis is still trying to get in with the captain, but he loves ships more than anything else. Pete and Melissa somehow get back together, even though they barely interacted since then. And if I'm hearing this correctly, they're letting Paco drive Herbie.
Looking good, Ocho.
Why do you keep calling this car Ocho? Ocho means 8. Can't you read the numbers?
Sure, I can read the numbers. 5 and 3 are 8. Anyone knows that.
No. You get in the front compartment and stay there. We'll be sure to get you a chimp companion at some point. Well, that's the last of the original 4 Herbie movies, and wow, this one was bad. The humor in this just felt very unnatural compared to the earlier movies. Like, yeah, Herbie would get himself into trouble a lot, but at least he wasn't trying to risk his life for silly shenanigans. I mean, he literally gets thrown over a ship and was threatened to be cut into pieces because he had to help this little kid who stole stuff from some serious bad guys who felt out of place the longer this movie went on. Pete and Davey contribute next to nothing in terms of owning Herbie and wanting to race with him, and we're pretty much there to explain why Herbie isn't with Jim anymore. Apart from the weak attempt of a romance subplot, they were extremely pointless to the overall story. Bliff and Louise had more to do with this movie than them, and they were strictly comic relief. It's hard to care for Paco since he causes most of this entire plot to happen. It's hard to get behind Herbie when he enables most of his actions, and it's hard to get behind any of the practical stunts because of how cheap the comedy is. There's just no charm to this one whatsoever. It's like they ran out of ideas for a good Herbie movie. Had this been it, if this were the last thing they did for Herbie, it would have been a pretty disappointing note to go out on. I can now see why this wouldn't be seen so favorably with critics or audiences anywhere. But this would not be the end for the little bug. In 1982, a sitcom was made called Herbie the Lovebug. Because of course that exists! Jim Douglas, once again played by Dean Jones, guess he didn't trust Paco with Herbie either, would take Herbie back and work as a driving instructor. The episodes, which there were only 5 of since this was only a mid-season replacement series, involved Jim interacting with this family thanks to Herbie and doing various things with them until he finally settles down with them in the end. It's alright. There's some funny lines here and there.
Her son gave her the lessons for her birthday.
85 years old today. Tell me that was the car, or they'll take me back to the home again.
Alfredo is a great cook. Better than my grandmother.
Oh, no. No, 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 no. You save it for yourself, buddy. Because you're going to have to stay here until I go get the checkbook and come back and bail you out.
I will say there's more of that Herbie spirit than goes bananas, but it's just disappointing that they're still ignoring Jim's first relationship. And now we're down another friend of Jim's since Wheelie's been replaced by another person we don't know. But at least I know where I last saw this bit from. But even this would not be the last we see of Herbie, because in 1997, Disney would do the most dreaded thing yet. They would have a remake! That's also a sequel! Stay tuned for another rendition of The Lovebug.